Okay, and we're back. Now, I promised I was going to do this a couple different ways. And you're going to wonder why, and here's where you get artsy fartsy. There's a couple cool things happening that are going to be nifty. So, first we'll do it the way that they might want you to do it, which is you can take a pop force. Force, where are they? Holy crow, they got a lot of forces, right? Do a pop force, which is kind of fun, and then we'll throw in here. The thing that I find interesting about this, what is it that I wanted to say about this? Let's pop up some of these guys, and I'm just going to throw in some numbers that I think tend to look good. Let me show you something fun. Okay, this is what you get by default, and you're like, yeah, well, that's kind of interesting. And sure, it is. I could just stop right there, couldn't we? We could. The only thing I think is kind of fun, and I tend to do this a lot, although I never tell anybody, but I'll tell you guys because you're cool. Throw into the offset this floor of t. Now you're wondering why the heck would I care about floor of t? In other words, obviously that's discontinuous. That goes t, as you remember, like f is every frame, right? And then t is time, so it goes in seconds. So it's 0, and then at 24 it's going to be 1, and so forth. So that means this is going to not change at all until you get up to frame 24, and then it's going to suddenly change to 2 on all these guys. Why would that be interesting? That tends to do this sudden shift, and then shift, and then shift, and then shift. Notice you don't actually see anything discontinuous here. But in practice, maybe because nobody does it, it tends to add this extra, and this is again really subtle, and maybe I'm just nuts, but it tends to add this kind of shifty shift to it. And then, sometimes I'll even do it in different, maybe we'll, over since we have a fourth dimension, maybe we'll do this one on twice as often or something. Again, it's kind of hard to explain if this is really a good thing or not. I think it is. And I've done it, like I said, secretly in a lot of places when I needed noise inside of anything. It tends to look cool. I don't know why. It isn't always something, and if you can see the discontinuity, you don't want to do it. And there are times when you don't want to do it. But since we're actually changing the offset of a noise that's getting added to it, it's kind of like a whatever that is, math guys, third order thing. You won't really notice the third order discontinuity or whatever. But you will feel as you're watching it that it doesn't get, not that it's static, but you'll feel that the noise stuff moving things around itself is also alive a little bit. I know, weird. Another thing we're going to try is, I don't know, here's an idea. Let's grab, so you can use little vex expressions here, which are like those little wrangle guys, that same language. Let's see what happens if, this guy goes through blue. You can actually grab the blue of the, current particle. So they got blue at their end, right? So if we grab their blue, you can change things like the amplitude here. See what it says parameter amp? That means that down here, if you say amp equals something or times equals something, you can alter it here. Now, of course, if I actually don't say times equal and just say equal, I'm utterly overriding it, but fine. Let's say that. Let's say we take the blue, and let's say the amplitude's 1 when the blue is 0, and then it goes down to 0.5 maybe over its life. So basically, at the end of its lifespan, this reduces. What the heck? Let's see what happens. Okay, again, subtle, but here's the thing I think is fun about that. Towards the end of their life, they're less active. You see what I'm saying? In other words, let's make this painfully obvious. We'll make it larger like it was before, make it go down to really small. They means that their craziness gets less crazy as they get older, which is a tragic thing to say for the rest of us, but it kind of feels realistic to me. I don't know, it just feels fun. I don't know, I kind of like that. So that's one way we're going to do that. And remember that and keep that in your head. Now the way you probably thought I was going to do this, which is with the pop, dop, bop, or whatever the heck they call this thing. Throwing out one of these puppies. Pop, bop. and then actually altering the force inside of here. And you can either go, here's what's cool about this guy. You can change the force or you can change the actual velocity. Usually we're screwing with the force, but in this time, I'm actually just going to change the velocity. So I'm going to take, they got a bunch of noises here, turb noise, right? Let's grab that and let's throw the actual point in here. We don't need to use rest position. Let's just make the rest of those guys parameters, and that's going to be something. Let's, we could put this into forces, or we could just add it to velocity. What do I want to do? Let's try. We do want it to be 3D. Let's add velocity to, or let's just add it into the velocity first. And let's add the velocity. I think that's basically effectively the same as just throwing it directly into the force and doing that. We'll find out in a second. For some reason, I feel like I always do this just because I like the idea of overriding the heck out of the velocity, which is probably not the smartest thing to do because it screws us with things like drag and stuff. But let's see what that does. Let me throw in, what do I usually use for numbers here? Let's go with this guy because he's 0 to 1, right? And we'll do frequency's fine. We'll pop it up a little bit. I'm going to do my trick, my secret trick. Don't tell anybody. This is just for you and I to know. Floor of T. And everything else will be the same. Let's see what happens. That's actually kind of fun. I kind of want to do the thing where they get less active at the end of the life, but I don't know. I kind of dig that. I do want to say this. Let's find out for sure if the force thing works the same. Because remember, we're blowing away V, and I feel like let's not blow away V. And I say that because I think the drag then will kick in. And might be, oh, it kicks in like a mother. I don't mind that, but I would say if we are going to do that, we'd do way less drag. Like this. Holy crap. Oh, actually, I don't want to change. I'm sorry. I don't want to change the drag because I want to keep you guys with the option of doing this guy, doink, and going back to this guy. And so I don't want to screw around with the way he works. Let's do this. Let's just make it a little stronger. Crank up the amplitude, as they say, and you can also multiply it. Is that more fun than the other one? I don't know. I guess I kind of think so. Again, this is where I leave it up to you. Yeah, we're getting towards the end of this lesson, then we'll go to the shader for the next one. But two different ways to do noise of stuff popping off, and a couple different tricks we showed there. None of this was really absolutely necessary for it, but this was more the artistic part. So I'm going to call this noise via VOP. I guess I'll go with our VOP one just because something about it says disintegration to me, I guess. I don't know. Let's take a look at it together. So here's our guy, and let's actually see him with our, as you remember, here was our initial guy that disappears, right? Let's take a look at these guys together just to see what they look like. And again, we're going to render these differently. They're probably giving a mismatch of attributes thing, but I'm not sure I really care about that. Let's see. Again, this is something that's a little hard to see because we don't have our shader in place and we're looking at it like this. But you can see the general gag, which is we do have particles coming off. Ooh, let's even do this. We do have particles coming off the edges and doing fun stuff. The colors we'll use for the particles will actually change. If we're going to have the shader and actually go with this iceberg thing, which I kind of like, white here and then blue here and then going that thing, I think that's fun because it implies iceberg to me. We'll have the particles grab that color. That'll be the color they start with, and then they'll go to something else. So these colors we gave before, fun as they are, and they were also useful to put in for the noise. If you go with that other one, we'll leave those around. But this is the general gag now. So our question is going to be, how do we get a shader to do the exact same trick? And of course, when you finally do this for real, we would crank up the living heck out of our number of particles, which is, where is it? I said I was going to move it up, didn't I? It is here, this impulse count. Let's actually move that up now. I'm going to add a parameter called particle, which I call particle count, particle amount, particle number of particles that are in this thingy. Let's just call it particle count. Ugh, can't type. Let's call it particle count. Okay. And for fun, I'm going to put it at a stupidly high number. Well, not stupidly high, but I'll put it at, like we were doing at 1,000. Let's put it like 10,000 just for fun. And again, the amount we put it, say how much time you have or how much computer you have and how much you want these guys to be fine. I feel like I want to say in the final end thing, you want to have it really high, but for your test, you may have it really low. So as you can see, that's kind of fun. If I had my druthers, now of course these guys are all the same size here. When we render them, we'll give them smaller sizes based on how many there are and so forth. And we might even do a water thing on top of that, which would actually be pretty freaking cool when I think about it. Anyway, but you get the idea. It's kind of nifty and it's kind of crazy. I'm going to do one last bit because I'm going to do this in between the next session, which is when you do something like this, let's say we wanted to go nuts and give it, more particles, right? So instead of the 20,000, we would give it, 6 bajillion or something. You know what else I might do? Ooh, I'm so tempted to. We could also reduce the, change the number of particles per frame, like have more at the beginning and fewer at the end. I don't think that would actually make it that much more exciting. I was tempted to. Anyways, obviously we could do that since we got this guy out here. This guy could actually be like this guy times that guy if we really wanted to. But the thing I want to do before we go to the next lesson is, let's say we want to go stupidly high, like, 100 bajillion thousand, every single frame. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to sit there and let the computer chug away. Whoops. I'm not going to let it chug away, but I'm going to bake out. So let's go ahead and put what I call a bake out node. And when you're at some studios, they literally call it bake out node and have their own thing. So it's called a file cache. Bonk. Now, actually, Houdini 5, it actually does have its own built-in cache thing that lets you do things. You could also say where you want the simulation from. I'm not going to use it. I have that separate because I tend to want to have more control over it and also separate it out so later I can go, oh, here's the cache versus here's where it came from. Caches, I also give them a color, which, man, I wish we had more colors. I give it this kind of dark brown. I really wish we just had more choices of colors. But I call it a bake out. And what I do is, let's call it a disintegration. Disintegration, right? Yeah. And now you notice by default, oops, a couple of things Houdini does that are weird for me. One, this load from disk is off, which kind of makes it pointless to have it all. So we're going to have that on. The other thing is they throw in hip name. And to me, I don't want that because I'm going to change the hip name usually every time I save, to increase and stuff. And so when we render, I'm going to hit this button. I'm going to leave these as the defaults. And then we'll hit this when it's done, so it loads in from that. But I would say take the hip name out of that just so that $OS is fine. The files will be there and they'll go into Geo. That's all fine. But I keep the hip name sync because I want to change. Usually this is like version 1, version 2, version 3. And I don't really change this that often. If you do in a version, these guys, then put the version in the name, like here. And so that way the next time you bake it out, it would be version 1, and then bake it out again, version 2, things like that. Or you can even give these the name of the hip of whatever, if you're at version 26, you can give them version 26 now so you know what frame they came from. It doesn't really matter. My point is that you don't want the hip name version to be baked into this because you're going to change one of those faster than the other. Also, spell words like disintegration, right? For God's sakes, people. Okay, come back for the next lesson and we'll dive into the shader part of this to get this all moving together.